You know, it's funny how we just sort of accept where our knowledge comes from. We rarely question the foundations, right?
Absolutely. We take so much for granted.
But what if those foundations, the very way we think about knowing things, are actually flawed, maybe even unfair?
That's a powerful question.
Today, we're really going to dig into that. We're doing a deep dive into Boaventura de Sousa Santos, specifically his work on epistemologies of the South.
It's fascinating stuff, a real challenge to conventional thinking.
Yeah, our mission here is to unpack his critique of, well, modern science as we know it, and then explore his vision for other ways of knowing. Think of it as a shortcut to getting properly informed on some pretty big ideas.
Let's do it.
Okay, so Santos argues. He says that modern science, kicking off around the 16th century, set up this totalitarian model.
Totalitarian meaning it aimed to be the only valid knowledge.
Exactly. It basically distrusted common sense, sidelined the humanities. Nature became this passive thing.
A machine.
Something just to be controlled and dominated. Right. And he calls the result disenchanted and sad knowledge. Knowledge kind of cut off from human values.
Yeah.
Built on these hard lines like subject versus object.
And what's really interesting is how science itself started to show the cracks in that model.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, think about Einstein. Relativity. Suddenly, time and space weren't absolute anymore. Measurements became local, dependent on the observer. That shakes the whole objective reality thing.
Right, that fixed viewpoint just dissolves. And then there's quantum mechanics, where just looking at something changes it. That neat line between the observer and the observed, it gets really blurry. Knowledge becomes about probability, not certainty.
Yeah, the observer is part of the equation. And you can't forget Gödel.
Gödel's theorems, even pure mathematics, the bedrock of logic, was shown to have limits. It couldn't prove its own consistency from within.
Exactly. No absolute self-contained foundation even there. It wasn't the perfect, complete system everyone assumed.
It's like the pillars of certainty were crumbling from the inside.
And then you have scientists like Ilya Prigozhin, his work on dissipative structures. He showed nature isn't some static machine at all.
More like dynamic.
Dynamic, historical, unpredictable, even self-organizing out of chaos. It's constantly evolving, a total departure from the old clockwork universe idea.
So, okay, modern science kind of undermines its own classical foundations. Where does Santos take us from there? What's the alternative?
Well, he proposes what he calls an emerging paradigm. The goal is prudent knowledge for a decent life.
Prudent knowledge, meaning knowledge that's wise, maybe ethical, concerned with well-being?
Precisely. It asks not just can we, but should we? How does this knowledge actually help create a just and decent life for people?
So it's about reconnecting knowledge with values. How does that look structurally?
One key thing is breaking down the wall between natural and social sciences. He sees the social sciences, which focus on human contexts and impacts, as having a sort of catalytic role.
Like guiding the direction of scientific inquiry.
Yeah, helping to shape the questions we ask, steering research towards more human-centered goals. And it also means seriously revaluing the humanities.
Bringing back history, philosophy, art.
Right. Fostering a non-dualist view, where mind and nature, subject and object, aren't seen as totally separate, but deeply interconnected. He even suggests understanding the world through analogies like a text to be interpreted, or a play, or a game.
Layers of meaning, not just mechanical cause and effect. This sounds like a radically different approach, and it connects to his idea of abyssal thinking, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Abyssal thinking is crucial here. It's about these deep, invisible lines, like chasms, that Western thought drew across reality.
Lines that divide us from them.
Exactly. And everything on the other side of that line, the knowledge, the experiences, often of the colonized, the oppressed, it's treated as non-existent, irrelevant, pushed into an abyss.
So it's not just ignoring other knowledge, it's actively denying its existence.
Yes. And that's where the epistemic South comes in. It's not about geography, not literally the Southern Hemisphere.
Okay. Important distinction.
It's a metaphor for the knowledge born out of struggle, resistance against capitalism, colonialism, patriarchy, all the systems that create those abyssal lines and try to silence other ways of knowing.
So it's knowledge from the perspective of those pushed to the margins.
Exactly. And Santos advocates for an ecology of knowledges, like a rainforest full of diversity.
Instead of a monoculture.
Right. Promoting dialogue, real conversation between scientific knowledge and all these other non-scientific understandings, seeing them as different maybe, but equally valid ways of making sense of the world.
And intercultural translation fits in there too.
Yes, finding ways to genuinely understand each other across these different knowledge systems, to build alliances, work together for social justice, for dignity.
Wow. Okay, this really flips the script on what counts as knowledge, who gets to define it, and what it's even for. It's a fundamental challenge.
It absolutely is. It forces us to ask some uncomfortable questions about the knowledge we rely on every day.
So the thought to leave you with is this. If how we know things, the very act of knowing, can either reinforce injustice or help dismantle it,
then how might you, as someone learning and engaging with the world, actively contribute? How can you help build a more diverse, more inclusive, a truly more just understanding, looking beyond those inherited abyssal lines?